where it sounds, and I want to make sure that we're all good. So yeah, if I go to bandlab.com and I've created an account, I can go to my library here, and I'm going to open this Soundvoice project in the mix editor. And yeah, there we go. The regions are looking a little bit better now. So the basics of a digital audio workstation are that there are tracks that you record something from the outside world into. And I can see here each of these is a track with a different recording of audio. And I think you should be, maybe somewhat familiar with this concept of a waveform. And here, if I play back this, I can actually hear a recording Julie made on one of these Zoom microphones. So I'll be able to do things like change the volume, move it in space from left to right.
What space to left to right? Oh, wow.
Yeah. So each track,
How did you do that? Where did you do that?
Yeah, sure. So each track has a section of it right here, and this is the same across all digital audio workstations, where I can change the volume, right? And I can change this knob from left to right. And it's actually exactly the same as this, that there's a volume when I plug into something, there's a volume knob and there's a left to right. So when I'm mixing, you want to think about both like how loud something is in comparison to other parts of your track, but also where it is spatially. If you have two vocalists both coming out of the left ear, maybe some of those frequencies or some of what they're singing is going to clash and actually not sound good. So just with these two simple tools, you can actually create a lot of clarity within your mix. When you guys hook up or get your audio files onto your computer or your phone, I can actually click this button here, right, and I'll be able to choose from any file that's on my computer. So here Julie sent me a WAV file of a music box that she was recording, and I can see that once I've imported it, it creates a new track, and what we call an audio region, which is...
You imported it, how did you import it?
Yeah, sure. So you can either drag it in from your file system, or you can press this import button here, and it will create a new track for you. Once you have something imported into your session, right, we have this thing called an audio region, which is, maybe my project is 15 minutes long, but it's a sequence of 1-minute recordings that I put together, right? So these are the individual segments of recordings that I have, and they're kind of the raw material that I'm going to be producing music with. To give you an easy example of, how recording works, I'll just show this. I press record, and it should record audio from this microphone. And it should record audio from this microphone. So not only am I able to immediately drag in any audio that you guys have used in your Zoom file, but from your phone or your computer, you can actually record directly into this. Let's go into a little bit about working with audio regions here. So one of the handy tricks that I'll be using throughout this session is soloing and muting tracks. So you can't actually see it on the screen. Let me move this. So you see this M button and this S button allows us to either mute, right? So all the other tracks we're playing, you can hear them, but that one will be silent. And the solo button means that all the other tracks are muted, but you'll be hearing that one. And we'll get into why this is important in A/B and sort of hearing the differences between your tracks. So we'll be working on track 1. I'm going to go ahead and solo it. And why don't I press play here? Now, it sounds pretty good. In this room, you can't hear exactly how noisy it is, right? So I'll turn it up just a little bit. You hear the background noise of this Zoom recorder here. right? It's really difficult to get a clean recording, right, when you're not in a studio. And I think this is one of the first problems that I can help you solve. So if I right-click this region here, there's a concept of denoising. So wherever you're making your recording, you could be out, it could be windy, there could be people yelling in the background, you could be trying to sing and the fridge is playing. You can right-click on your region and you can select denoise. So I'm going to go ahead and do that now. But actually first I'm going to duplicate my track. I forgot about that. So it just makes a carbon copy, right? So I can know when I denoise the region, does it sound good or not, right? Because again, unlike tape, I'm able to undo it. So I'll go ahead and solo this track and apply the denoise. And let's have a listen just to that beginning section where there was a lot of noise. Right? Now let's listen to the other track. So, now let's listen to the original track with the vocals. So it sounds pretty good. And with the denoise, we just want to make sure that Julie's voice sounds natural, right? It's not taking out anything that we actually want in terms of the musical content. So let's listen to that.
Do you have some variety of noising you're taking out?
No, we do not. But I can show you another trick. It runs light, and you can actually do it multiple times. So we want to keep it really simple. And if I really pump this up, you might be able to hear a little bit of background noise, and I'll show you with individual effects how you could just dial it in that last bit. But if we play here, I would say that's very clean and a very nice sort of bass line to get started with. Now, I typically try and clean up my audio recordings or denoise or focus in on what I want to use in my production earlier, because later on, any of that noise that's in the recording is just going to get amplified or resampled, or maybe you compress it, and it's going to keep getting louder and louder. So the sooner you kind of sculpt out exactly what you don't need, right, the sooner it'll be better long term. So, how else might we make Julie's vocal recording better? Do y'all have any ideas on processes or things we might be able to apply to her voice?
You never go wrong with reverb.
You never go wrong with reverb. That's right. That's right.
Never
That's
go wrong
exactly
with what?
reverb. So reverb is I'll go over there right now. It's a way to place Julie's voice into a space, right? Because when you listen to musicians, it's always best live, in my opinion, and you can hear the room, they respond to the room, there's resonances, and the beauty of computers is that we can simulate that and put it into this, even if we don't have access to that, right? So that's exactly the case, and I'll just kind of get set up to play back from this area over and over again. Now, in bandlab we have a lot. Reverb is a signal processor, what we would call an audio effect. And we actually have a lot of audio effects built into bandlab that we can access that will really help us turn this into the sound of a pop star singing. Also can't quite see it with the screen, but in the bottom part of the mix editor here, there's a little tab called Effects. And if I go ahead and open up this tab, you can see I kind of have a blank canvas of adding effects, and there's many different types of effects that we could go over. We get to them in a little bit, the different types of them, but it's a whole world in itself, and it's kind of complicated. And similar to cooking shows, I put together an effects chain that sounds really good with different types of effects that I can show you what they do specifically to Julie's vocal track. One of the beautiful parts about bandlab is like once I make a preset, right, which is a bunch of different effects, I can save it and use it later on my phone or on any computer again, so between projects.
Wait, how do you save a vocal? How do you save an effect?
Yeah, sure. You can save here or save as, and it will save this chain of effects, and you can reuse them, right? So say you find something that really suits your voice. There's no point in redoing it every time on every project. So this will help you do that. Each of these individual pedals or blocks here are a different kind of effect, and I'm going to run you through kind of what they are, and maybe we can listen to them and see what that does. So, like I said, removing things from the sound up front is extremely important, and in addition to denoise, which is, it's a frequency-based process, so even while I'm talking, I'm taking out sounds from the background, right, in that recording. A noise gate is a time-based process, so when something gets really quiet, it turns the volume down, right? So in between when Julie's talking, it's just going to turn the volume all the way down. So if there's any sounds, right, that aren't loud enough or just little background things, it'll just turn the volume down for that. With the background noise here, I think it's going to be hard to tell the difference, but right. Basically sounds the same here because I've applied denoise, but with headphones, you would be able to definitely tell the difference. And as Justice mentioned, after I have, I think this recording is sounding really clean. I think it's the raw material I'm going to start to produce with. Now let's put it in a space, right? So we have a effect called Studio Reverb, and what this does is it creates a type of space that Julie's voice will sit in. So if I put the mix, which is how much of the dry voice versus how much of the reverb voice is going to this processor all the way up, you should hear it in a huge space. And I can even increase the size of that space. Or change the color. And you can see we're already changing drastically. So for vocal tracks, I like to keep the size actually not too big, right? For synths and leads, I want it huge. I want that tail. I want a really big sound, right? But for the voice, I kind of want to increase this. I want to hear her voice around my head, right? So a little bit of like I'm in the room with her. And the color, I like to keep it down for vocal tracks because there's a lot of high frequencies that we make while we're singing, and those actually get amplified in the reverb, and they go.
Yeah, you hear a lot of.
Yeah, you hear a lot of it. Yeah. So if you lower the tone. You get a lot of that, just the lower resonant parts of the space. So
in this case, what is color? This is a new phrase.
it's a new
That
phrase.
might be an
Yeah.
old thing, but you guys.
It's tone color, and it's used often in like guitar pedals or effects. So what's happening behind the scene here is that to imitate a space, space moves through, sound moves through space.
Right.
You basically create a lot of delays and add a lot of filters, right? So it's like all the complex things that happen to your voice as it moves around the room.
Mm-hmm.
And we simulate that in like a matrix network of delays and filters.
Mm-hmm.
And this color is basically all of those filters. So how much sound is actually reverberating off of the walls. So a hard wall like this, if I yell into it, you'll hear all those high frequencies because it's a really dense, basically material. But if I yell into this, right, it absorbs a lot of the high frequencies and it lowers that. So it is filtering, but in the sense of reverb, it could be almost like I'm starting to put more fabric in the room and dampen the room or have more carpet in it, right?
So it's a fancy word for dancing?
It's a fancy word for dampening, exactly.
Is tone
Color is
maybe?
dampening or reverb is
Color is dampening, exactly.
Would color and tone be synonyms, or they're different?
Exactly. Color and tone are synonyms. Cinnamon.
Cinnamons.
Cinnamon.
There it is, cinnamon. All right. Well, this leads us to maybe the most is ubiquitous, I don't know if that's the right word, processor around, which is an equalizer. And does anybody have an idea of what an equalizer might do to the sound?
I did, but I don't remember.
You don't remember? Yeah. The name actually comes from, old stereos in cars, right? So you put speakers in there, you got that treble, you got the bass, and you got the mid, because you want to dial in what sounds good for wherever your speakers are. And this is basically exactly the same thing. So it allows us to highlight specific frequencies, right, of Julie's voice at different bands. So each one of these is a different frequency range. And if I play through this, and then I turn it off, do you hear how much lower frequencies are? I'm really highlighting the airy part of Julie's voice. So you can really shake. My tip is EQ and reverb. Once you find something you like, divide it by 2. It's like candy. It's very easy to go too much on the reverb and the EQ, and your listeners are going to immediately know. You got nothing to hide. It sounds really good. So just, I would move it a little bit closer to the default state there. So now, we remove noise, we've added the space, and we've kind of changed the tonal characteristics of it. One of the things that we haven't changed at all, right, we've adjusted the frequency and the space, but what is maybe another axis of sound that we haven't quite looked at yet?
Time.
Time is one of them. We'll get to time, actually. But before time.
Before time.
Nothing before time. The dynamics. So how loud or soft something is. And I don't know, sometimes you listen to the radio and you can hear the person speaking right into the microphone, and you can hear them laughing and moving away from the microphone, and it gets really quiet. And even when you're recording your own stuff, it's not going to sound good if you don't move at all, right? And you can't, change your position or move with the music. And what that causes is, even on, with sensitive microphones, even your phone, big changes in the dynamics, right? So it's quieter when you're farther away, and it's louder when you're closer to it. And we have different dynamic processors too. One of them is called a compressor, which honestly takes a long time to master, but the concepts are pretty simple in that a compressor makes your audio, when it's quieter, louder, and when it's louder, it makes it quieter. So that way, you kind of can level the track and make sure it sounds really good, right, throughout the whole recording without having to worry about, your position in the microphone. So let's take a listen to what that sounds like. So it's off now. And I want you to hear the reverb. One of my favorite things is to put reverb before compressor and hear the reverb after the compressor. Now turn it on. So it's generally louder, but also you can hear it bringing out a little bit of that background noise, which I really like as one of the sonic characteristics. Attack, I won't get into, we can individually maybe speak if you want more about compressors, but attack is how quickly, right, the volume is starting to change. Release is how slowly it stops changing the volume, right? And the ratio is basically how much it changes the volume once it hits this threshold. But this is kind of an advanced audio engineering type of effect, but otherwise, the lesson saying is true. These are all audio workstations.
Is the compressor the opposite of a limiter or is it
Exactly. So there's 3 types of dynamic processors, and I'll give you this example. This is modeled off of the very first compressor ever invented, physically. And you can see it's only a few controls, which is why I like to use it. One of them is peak reduction, right? Gain, so just how loud it is going into it. And if it's a compressor, a limiter, I think we'll be able to hear the difference here. So I'm going to reduce the peaks and compress them. Now if I turn the gain up, you hear how everything is the same volume. And it's kind of pumping. Right? Now if I go to limit mode, like peak reduction, and gain down, sounds about the same. But now when I turn the gain up, it only starts lowering the volume, right, when it gets to a certain threshold. So it's not as pumpy. So if I switch, lots of reverb, just kind of lowering Julie's voice when it comes in. The other type of dynamic processor is an expander, which is the opposite of compressor, which means that when something is quiet, it makes it really loud, right? And when something's loud, it makes it really quiet. So, I like kind of the settings too on this one. Now my last, for vocal tracks and really anything, I'm going to add a chorus. And this is a very simple chorus, also modeled out with the very first chorus, which just has 4 settings. But a chorus is a different type of effect in that it's a modulator, right? So it doesn't change the tone, it changes the tone, but it's not like a filter, right? Or it's not imitating space or trying to change the volume. What's actually happening here is it takes the incoming signal and it adds a little delay, copies it and delays it a bunch of time, and then changes the delay time slightly. So it makes it sound like there's more of you, more versions of you in the room. So if I turn that on, it's a very subtle speaker. So without, it just sort of brightens it up. So again, I'm going to have how much reverb I put on. And I think that's actually like a very nice sounding vocal. Let's see where we start at. It's a little boomy, and at the beginning here. But again, all of that noise, and if I solo, the track is just cleaned up. Totally clean. So that kind of runs our first thing of just tracks, right? You can change the volume, you can change where it sits, you can change its space, its tonal characteristics, make it more uniform in terms of its dynamics, and even add some creative effects. But there's actually even more we can do, right, just in terms of editing these regions, because the audio itself, we can cut it up and extend it and splice it and stretch it and repitch it, and in combination, right, you can take something as simple as Julie, singing into this recorder and kind of start to make really awesome stuff. So I'm going to go ahead and show a little bit of what that looks like and the different types of things we can get into with editing audio there. So I'll move these back just a tiny bit. You can zoom in. It's off screen, but it's very important. You've got to be able to see where you're coming from. I will set this up here and keep rolling. So I'm going to again duplicate this track, and if I go here, you see it has all the same effects. Sounds exactly the same. So one of my favorite things to do, which is really hard to do my mistake, it's this reversing the playback rate, but I can actually just reverse the sample here. And all of a sudden,
Oh, you listen to that backmaster
yeah, it sounds really cool, right? What I really like is this first little bit of audio here, actually. So if I select this region, I want to cut out this first half of it. Actually, I only like, I think that sounds pretty good what Julie's singing here. Right? So, I'll select the region, and I'll actually press S, or you can use this icon here, but once I do that, I have a separate audio region of just this area. And I'm going to go ahead and delete that, right? I'll move this just to the beginning, right, so they line up, and let's play those tracks together. So adjusted the pain there, normal, backwards. All right.
How you reverse the track?
Yeah, sure. If you right click on a region, in the same place that we have denoise, you have reversing the region here. And I can, also if you double click the audio region, you get this editor where you're able to change the playback rate or the pitch of a specific sample. So that's how I would achieve that. And one of the, even with panning, right, like I said, say you have two voices in the same range. It's a lot of frequency and pitch in the same area, and one of the nice things is to harmonize or expand it out. So in this menu here, I'm actually able to change the pitch of Julie's voice here. So if I press plus, it changes it up one semitone. And this is a really fun way. So, it's running a little slow today, but I'll go ahead and just make that an octave higher. And it's kind of something that I pre-baked a vocal preset that actually, so again, sounds really good with this. And we can go over the effects there, the background vocal. This has a delay in it that actually. So I really like that. And I actually wanted to run, you know, it's 2 bars right now, and if I press this little circle button here, I can actually loop it, right? So it just keeps playing with the rest of Julie's tracks here. And I'll make these just kind of 8 bars, right? Now, I'm going to duplicate this track again and just really quickly, you know, move it slightly, change the pan, and then change the pitch back down. And right now we have kind of a whole harmonization. And that kind of, in a few quick areas, right, you can change the length and the position of an audio region in time. You can slice it, and chop it up into little parts. You can change the volume of those individual sections. You can change the pitch of those individual sections. And I can even slow down these sections too, right, if I wanted to, say, make this twice as fast or a little bit faster. And, oh yeah.
I have a question. Is it possible to make changes so they look in time, so changing the track?
Yeah, exactly. Some of the effects actually, like the delay time is synced to the BPM. So if it plays back, right, if you have a beat or something rhythmic in there, it'll move with the time of your composition. I can actually, there's a quick example of this. In the bottom right here, we have a sound library, and it kind of allows you to, there's tons of loops and samples, tens of thousands of them royalty-free within BandLab that you can also use to make music. And, you know, we're able to kind of import them here.
That's Audrey Groovy, you're getting the beat.
Exactly. So she made a pack for us, and she actually recorded a bunch of beats, and you know they're actually going to sync with Julie's track now. So. I don't even know if we need the original vocals at this point. Sorry, Julie.
Thank goodness.
So, right, very quick. What?
Who's Audrey Groove?
Who's Audrey Group?
Yeah.
She's a artist that we commissioned to make a pack, basically a loop pack of samples that people can use across our platform. And we work with a bunch of artists, right, to populate this here. People want to make stuff that other artists can work with, and this is a place to find that. Yeah. So this is, you know, I moved pretty quick here, but I wanted to kind of give a rundown of like the basic techniques in mixing tracks, right? Working with regions and then importing audio. And I think, yeah, hopefully gives you some ideas of different experiments or editing techniques you guys can take on your recordings. And then, depending on how we're feeling, we can take a quick break, and I can show you how to build an instrument out of these samples. So something that you could maybe perform with, right, on pads or on the phone. So it's a little less linear in terms of just putting audio together, right? So does that sound good to y'all? A little break, and then
Okay.
sounds good. Yeah.
Well,
Perfect.
So my question was actually,
Perfect.
is it possible to not to only apply an effect to a track, but also to change it in time, like more or less?
Oh yeah. So check this out. What is like changing the volume over time, right? Is that,
Any effect changing with time, like it will be.
A crescendo.
yeah.
Whatever effect you do, like it will be recorded in time. Exactly.
Exactly. So I have there's a feature in Outdoor called automation. And if you click this button here, you'll go into automation mode.
it's okay.
Right here, yeah. And here I can see volume, right? So if I'm able to add points in time and then adjust them. So now, right, if I watch this, you can see the volume actually moving. And another way is I can apply a fade here on the region itself, right? So maybe I want this to fade in a little bit here. And if we want to get really advanced, why don't I add a filter? So a filter is kind of like a EQ, but it cuts out either all the high frequencies or all the low frequencies. And here is a low pass, so only the low frequencies. And I can actually automate that, right? So say I want, over the course of this drum track, now we should see. And that gives it a lot of life, right? So it's not just all right in the same
So
area.
what is the sequence for applying this feature?
Yeah, sure. First, you have your track, right? You have some recording, something that you want to automate. You press this automation button. And then it takes you to this mode where you'll see little graphs over
yeah.
the regions.
See, and you just click for
Yeah.
time.
Here you can choose which parameter, so in the effect or in the track's volume that you want to use. In this case, I have a lot of very different things that I can actually automate. It's all really customizable. And then you're able to put them in directly. If you have access to a device, right, I can actually change the MIDI mappings and work with them in this way, I think. Yeah, it's not quite there. So if a track has automation, you'll see this little icon too. And then you'll be able to hit it, and I will show you the last thing. There you go. I'm totally open to questions now too, if you have any. I went through a lot. Yeah.
Or maybe if you have an idea of, we haven't talked too much about what we want to do for the final pieces, but if you have kind of an idea and you want to like run it by, like, oh, okay, I want to record whatever it is, and how would I go about doing it? Now's a good time for that. Or we'll talk about it more next week too. So.
How many more weeks do we have?
Next week is our last class, and then we have the concert. So next week will be kind of like a workshop time to bring in like a start of the material you want to use for the final piece, and then we'll
can
play
do
it.
some of this practice stuff that he's
Exactly.
teaching.
Yeah, exactly.
Cool.
Hopefully, yeah, you will. You'll take the recordings that you made and do something like this, and it's also, I was thinking it would have some kind of like live element in it. But maybe you want to just make a fixed piece and play it. So it can be up to you what feels interesting to do. Does anybody have thoughts about what way they're leaning in terms of something to do? You're thinking of doing? You were thinking of maybe singing live, yeah?
Yeah, I'm gonna sing.
Okay, you're
I've
gonna
been-
sing. So maybe make like
I've
a
been trying
backup
to
track?
pull my voice together because I really wanted to see what I can do to, just pull off, something. I don't know what exactly.
Cool.
But to be able to carry melody for me is big, and I can do it in, like different ranges.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Right. Okay.
I could probably use your voice if you don't mind.
Oh, I'm pleased to do anything I can do.
Cool.
Yeah.
Great. Collaboration. Do you have any ideas, Wayne?
Well, I tried to record the wind because we had
That's tricky.
that. Yeah, and so of course it wasn't rattling the windows or anything. So because I didn't want the rattle.
Wind is really hard because it maxes out the microphones and just sounds like it can clip really easily. Interesting. So like wind sounds, are you thinking like a live thing with it, or to more of like a fixed media piece?
Yeah, and we had the bubbles, so the bubbles and wind.
I like it. It's cool, and you can put some effects on it.
Right.
Other than wind. Oh, thank you. I can take care of it. It's water just like multiplies. I keep cleaning it up
It's
and
sticky
just
too. It's sticky. It's just went everywhere. So can you find like ready grooves and things?
Let's see.
One of the things that people like to do.
I don't know. Some people can get like just use the sound that they're on the band that they're already doing by getting a karaoke. Removing your voice and putting your
Removing
voice.
voices. Huh?
Can you do that on computers usually?
You can. Now I'm down there actually. It's a little difficult to remove the voice in the karaoke way, actually. But if you want to look for,
But a karaoke machine would be able to do that?
yeah, not every one of them actually, but you could. One of the things is you can, on YouTube, right? Find.
You can find some that are done.
Exactly.
But they're not the
karaoke
ones you
version.
want, so
Yeah.
I want to try. So I want to know how to do that. So I buy a karaoke
This
machine and
particular
make sure they
concept
can do
of
that.
this thing.
Yeah, there's some software specifically for like that. It's like really,
Karaoke.
or yeah, like taking the voice out of it. It's just they're pretty expensive right now, so that's the only like.
Yeah,
It's
so
not.
it's very prohibitive is expensive.
We should check it out actually. It's this handy thing.
Oh, it would be fabulous. It would
Yeah.
be amazing, yeah.
There's if you want like sounds to start with, if you go to bandlab.com/sounds, you'll see here we have a huge library of like all these different types of sounds that you can kind of play with all for free. So I can look at some of these right. So tambourine, synthesizer, but it's all royalty free. So you could even like make money off of your track and using these samples. It's totally fine, right? So there's I think over 20,000 at this point.
So you're completely sure that it won't be any trouble with
Yes, I helped craft the legal language for it. So it's like,
You wrote the law.
yeah.
Well, not the law.
Not the law. But when the people who make loops for us, it's very clear that anybody can make music and make money off of the music they make with any of these samples. So you're kind of clear here.
I'll hold harmless. So.
Yeah.
I have a question. Is it possible to make sounds with synthesizer yourself?
As in, like record yourself playing the keyboard.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, that's totally possible. So I'll go ahead and show you how to do that. I didn't get into MIDI, but I can talk about instruments and also sampler, which is a way to like make instruments out of your own recordings next, I think, which could be an interesting thing. But if I go to instruments here, I'll be able to see a grand piano, and I have a MIDI keyboard hooked up, but you can also use your computer keyboard, and so yeah.
Is there something more
What
abstract?
letters are you
Like
pressing in order to make the sound?
Yeah, so they're mapped out here, Z, S, X, D, and then any device that gets plugged in, it'll just automatically map it. But it's all possible right off from the computer keyboard. And then in this menu to the left here, where you see grand piano, and I can, we have tons of different effects, so like pads, so I could choose this one and start to even record or play along with Julie's track. Right, so if it's a funky noise, but it just recorded essentially my take there, and I can, this is called MIDI. It's a MIDI editor. I don't think we'll have time to discuss all the intricacies of MIDI, but it essentially records my performance data, right, of which keys I was pressing down on the keyboard over time, and how hard I press down on those keys. So if I shorten these notes, now when I play back, they're played back short, or I could move them down an octave. Right, or whatever kind of notes and edit the way I want to. So you can even craft extremely complicated performances that you can't play yourself, right? That's kind of the beauty of MIDI.
But you need this.
You don't need this actually. I could unplug this right now, and if I go back to this instrument mode here, you know, I can go somewhere else in my track and so I just used my computer keyboard and right, you can see it's recorded everything without this, which is very handy.
And you selected that in on the left side there.
Will BandLab go with a non-Apple device?
Yes, it will actually. So,
You could go to like a library, and any computer they have there, you could open this on it.
Uh-huh.
You could work on anything.
yeah. Actually, to give you an example
Browser-based.
here,
Yeah, it's just browser based. That's why it's so cool.
I will open the BandLab app with my account.
This is on your phone.
This is on my phone. So I go to my library. I just saved this project Soundvoice. I can open it in the mix editor. And right, you see that what I was just working on, if I double tap it, now I'm in the MIDI editor, right? And you can see all of Julie's tracks here. So, you know, I can edit, move around, and it's pretty,
Spooky.
pretty spooky there.
Oh, it is.
How long have you been doing this in your life?
You don't want to know. Since I was as old as I've been on a computer, I've been producing music with them. On the phone, I think this will be very helpful for the vocalists and the singers in the crew. We have a special feature called auto tune, so auto pitch. So if I open this track, right, the navigation, I can't go over everything, but you can see Julie's voice here. I can actually turn on pitch correction. Sorry, Julie, it wasn't enough.
I sound like T-Pain.
Yeah. No? And you can change
But
key.
you could put just a little bit on and it would sound just in tune.
You need all of it. I want the T-Pain. Look at that. I think that's a hit now with T-Pain. We gotta get rid of that synth though. And magically, Julie is now in tune with the track there. So, yeah, you can work on any device. You can save as many projects as you want, access to any device. It's all free, so there's no subscription or paid plan. You all will have access to this.
So you want people to get addicted the way you are?
Well, the business model is not about monetizing the creation tools. So we kind of, we think that's
There are
what should be
opportunities
free.
there at any rate.
Exactly. So when artists get big, right, that's when we want to we can help them release things to Spotify, right, or advocate for the application, or perhaps we have a feature called albums. You make an album and you want to sell it, right? We actually allow you to self-price it, attach your PayPal account. And
I know, and
make
at
money.
any rate, so there's
Exactly.
lots of doors that can open this way.
Yeah, it's mostly about if artists are making money, it's transactions, right? So not the actual tools itself or the stage.
Putting things back into the hands of the
Yeah,
So what about narration?
yeah.
Just speeches like that,
So-
as opposed to music.
Yeah, I can go over a little bit of that. So on the phone, if I press the plus button, I can have a voice or mic here, right? I select this track, and we have a screen, right, similar, and if I press the record button here, you should start to see audio from my voice recording into my phone. And if I play that back, see audio from my voice recording into my phone. Again, it's a little noisy. When I apply a little denoise, you should start to see audio, and I'm able to go to effects. These are presets that will help you so that you don't need to do everything yourself. And
You use this even just for audio, your voice.
yeah, so from my voice recording into my phone. Yeah.
So one thing to say is that the microphones on your recorders
You should start to see.
a little higher quality than the ones
Oh,
on
right,
your phone.
yeah.
So if you do record with the recorder, it'll sound a little bit better, but yes, this still applies. It's the same.
Yeah, because I'm here for audio books. I just use my phone.
Oh, cool. I
Yeah.
didn't know you did that. That's very cool.
One of the things, it's like the best camera is the camera you have on you.
Right.
And that's the thing is like with the phone, the recorders will sound better, but always having a way to just open this up and press record is pretty handy. And yeah, the same thing I think for voices, it's like you remove the noise, a little bit of EQ and compression, and it's going to be, usually that's what.
You can do
voiceover
something with
artists
your
will do.
phone even if you have a few skills with Bando.
Exactly, yeah, you should be
It's
good.
more
Just because it's there, you got it.
Yeah, yeah.
Right, right.
Um,
So maybe, oh yeah, you were gonna do sampler, and now I was gonna ask if it would maybe be helpful to do like a little maybe breakout time and try and do some stuff on just to like try it yourself on some computers and see if any questions come up along the way. But maybe you should talk about the sampler first.
Yeah, there's one really fun thing, and I'll show you on the phone. It also works on the computer, that combines recording and sequencing and producing in this way. It's called a sampler. So what a sampler does is it lets you record sounds from the world or import them into each of these different areas, and then you can perform with them really quickly, right? So in this case, say I wanted a bass drum, I can actually hold this pad and now, right, I have a recording of this